Commissioner Gordon. Bane has escaped.
Every dream begins as defiance. It stands against gravity, against reason, against the noise of the world that tells you to settle. The moment you choose to pursue something beyond survival, you declare war on comfort. That's why it feels lonely. Dreams demand isolation before recognition. They strip you bare of excuses and distractions. The early chapters of any pursuit are built on doubt and invisible effort. You wake before the world, work when no one watches, and bleed in silence. That's not punishment, it's purification. The dream tests whether you truly mean it. Every setback is not rejection but refinement. You learn endurance not through success, but through resistance. The ones who make it never had clearer paths. They just refused to step back when the fog was thick. The illusion of clarity destroys more ambition than failure ever could. You wait for signs, approval, and permission when all you need is movement. Progress was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be persistent. When the dream seems out of reach, that's the exact distance where growth begins. The pain you feel when nothing works is the threshold most people never cross. That pain is the sign that your limits are starting to bend. Endure it. Bend with it. It's shaping you into someone capable of carrying the weight of what you're asking for. When you think you're too late, you're actually early. When you feel tired, you're just beginning. Dreams don't reward speed, they reward endurance. Time has a strange loyalty to those who keep showing up. You don't lose because the world conspired against you. You lose because you stopped when the world was just about to move. Momentum always looks invisible right before it compounds. Every great story reads the same way. Years of obscurity followed by one instant of recognition. That moment doesn't happen because of luck. It happens because you refuse to give up in the chapter where everyone else quit. There will come a season where everything slows, where all effort feels wasted. That's the dream asking for proof of faith. Most people love the idea of success until it demands sacrifice. You'll have to give up comfort, validation, and approval. You'll have to keep walking through rejection and indifference. The hardest part isn't the work, it's working without applause. That silence breaks the uncommitted. But if you can learn to keep going in the dark, you become dangerous in the light. Dreams do not die in failure, they die in hesitation. The longer you delay, the colder they grow. Action reignites them. Obstacles are not barriers, they are calibrations. They show you what you still need to learn. Every problem that stops you is a mirror reflecting the gap between who you are and who you need to be. That's why quitting never solves anything. It just freezes evolution. The dream doesn't punish, it teaches. When you get rejected, it's not the end. It's information. It's your next instruction. Adjust, not abandon. That's how persistence becomes precision. The dream reshapes itself as you grow, and what once looked impossible begins to respond to your consistency. There is no perfect timing to chase what calls you. Waiting for alignment is just fear in disguise. The truth is that conditions never become ideal. You do. Each day you choose to move forward through chaos. You build resilience. That's what makes the dream respect you. Life doesn't hand destiny to the hopeful. It hands it to the relentless. Those who keep grinding through noise eventually silence it. You can either spend years imagining what could happen or spend those same years building proof that it can. Every day you delay, you surrender another piece of potential. Every dream is a duel between who you are and who you could become. The version of you that settles fights the version that strives. You can feel the battle in the pit of your stomach. Every excuse, every rationalization, every doubt is the old self-resisting extinction. You don't overcome it through motivation, you overcome it through momentum. You keep showing up until repetition becomes identity. The moment you stop relying on emotion to move you is the moment you start transforming into someone unstoppable. The dream doesn't ask you to be fearless. It asks you to act while afraid. There will be people who tell you to be realistic. That word has killed more ambition than failure ever will. Realism is often fear rebranded as wisdom. Those who call you unrealistic are only describing the limits of their own imagination. Every invention, every movement, every revolution began as something someone called impossible. Dreams only look unrealistic until they're achieved. Then they look inevitable. You don't owe anyone an explanation for wanting more. You only owe yourself the discipline to pursue it long enough for reality to catch up. The day you stop defending your ambition is the day it begins to defend you. Progress is slow because transformation takes time. You cannot rush strength. The mountain you're climbing is shaping the muscles you'll need at the top. Every failure becomes part of your foundation. Every scar becomes a reminder that you've survived worse. The process feels brutal because you're shedding everything that cannot survive your next level. Quitting doesn't save you from pain. It just resets it. The only way out is through. The dream is waiting on the other side of persistence, not permission. The moment you understand that, struggle turns into training. The brain is not a static organ. It is a living storm of rewiring, a constant forge of identity. Every failure, every repetition, every attempt sends electrical signals across its networks, carving new paths through effort. You are literally sculpting yourself with action. The neurons that fire together start binding tighter, forming habits, instincts, reflexes. That means every time you try again, even if you fail, your brain changes. It doesn't care about speed. It cares about repetition. The person you are becoming is written in synapses, not slogans. You do not need to wait for some mythical transformation. It's already happening, quietly, under your skull, every time you push beyond inertia. The myth of limitation dissolves under neuroscience. You've been told you're born with a fixed capacity, but biology disagrees. The brain was designed for adaptation. When you expose it to challenge, it reconfigures itself. Old patterns decay, and new circuits take their place. That's why discomfort feels painful. You are literally breaking neural architecture that no longer serves you. Growth is not metaphorical, it's physical. You can feel it as resistance, frustration, fatigue. But on the other side of those sensations is rewiring, your brain mapping new routes, preparing you to handle more complexity tomorrow than you did today. Every new attempt, no matter how small, is a conversation between intention and biology. You act, the brain observes, and the circuitry updates accordingly. You are training a machine that listens only to consistency. One attempt is noise. 10,000 attempts are structure. The synapses strengthen with use the same way muscle fibers do under tension. Failure is not feedback from the world. It's feedback from the nervous system. It's the signal that something is being built inside you that didn't exist before. You are not failing. You are engraving. People mistake age for decline when it's actually neglect. The brain never loses its ability to evolve. It only loses stimulation. The moment you stop challenging it, the rewiring slows. That's why those who stay curious never grow dull. Learning is youth extended into time. Every new skill you attempt, every fear you confront, lights up dormant regions of your mind like cities coming back to life. Even in later years, new neural pathways bloom. That's the body's reminder that it never stopped being capable. You just stopped asking it to adapt. The process is invisible, which is why most people quit before results appear. You can't see the rewiring. but it's happening beneath frustration. The moments you feel stuck are when the brain is working hardest to bridge old connections with new understanding. That fatigue is not failure, it's proof of rewiring. The system demands energy to build new architecture, and that exhaustion you feel is the cost of evolution. Once the connections solidify, what felt impossible becomes automatic. The task that drained you becomes effortless because your biology caught up with your will. The beauty of neuroplasticity is that every action counts. Every time you resist old patterns, you weaken them. Every time you act with new intent, you reinforce different ones. The brain is always taking notes. It rewards persistence by making the difficult easier over time. That means change is never a matter of talent. It's a matter of frequency. The most remarkable transformations are just tiny actions repeated enough times to become identity. You don't change overnight. You change circuit by circuit, impulse by impulse, until the new version of you replaces the old by default. Doubt fades when you understand that progress is biological. You are not waiting for luck. You are conditioning neurons. The brain thrives on input. Every challenge you face becomes an invitation for it to adapt. What looks like struggle is construction. What feels like failure is just rewiring under tension. When you internalize this truth, persistence stops feeling like punishment. You begin to see the invisible architecture forming within you. You stop chasing motivation and start respecting repetition. There's no finish line to evolution. The brain's capacity to change continues until your last breath. That means the story never ends unless you stop writing it. Every decade can become a new chapter if you choose to keep stimulating the circuitry. The comfort zone is not protection, it's decay. The moment you stop stretching your mind, you begin to shrink it. Keep feeding it with new experiences, new challenges, new risks. The neurons will reward you with vitality, clarity, and momentum. Stagnation is death dressed in familiarity. Those who endure long enough to understand this truth realize that reinvention is not optional, it's inevitable. The ones who grow old with purpose are not the luckiest. They are the most deliberate. They treat every day as a neural exercise, every failure as feedback, every effort as energy invested in the architecture of the self. They know that the mind expands in response to pressure, not praise. The process never gets easier. You just get more efficient at rewriting your limitations. The body is built for survival, not excellence. When exhaustion arrives, it's rarely real. It's a signal from the nervous system whispering for safety. Around 40% of your potential remains locked behind that signal. The brain tells you you're done to conserve energy, to keep you from venturing into danger. But that alarm is ancient, designed for a world of predators, not progress. Modern fatigue is often just the echo of fear disguised as caution. When you ignore it and push once more, you enter the territory few ever explore, the raw zone where real growth hides. That one extra rep, one extra hour, one extra attempt. Those moments compound faster than 100 average ones. The difference between mediocrity and mastery is often a single push beyond comfort. Fatigue lies. It arrives to test discipline, not define limits. The body feels done long before it's depleted because the brain guards comfort like a jealous warden. The moment you stop when it hurts, you teach your mind that comfort wins. The moment you move despite pain, you teach it that effort decides reality. That small defiance begins to rewire everything. The nervous system learns that strain is not death, it's adaptation. That's how growth works, not through willpower alone, but through reprogramming your biology. Each time you push past perceived exhaustion, you expand your nervous system's tolerance. Pain becomes data, not deterrent. The edge of exhaustion is where evolution begins. When you feel done, You are only at the beginning of your real capacity. The human body was never designed for efficiency. It was designed for resilience. It holds reserves that can only be accessed through demand. Think of a runner collapsing at the finish line, not because the body quit, but because the goal allowed it to. Remove the finish line, and the same body runs further. Limits shift based on belief. The nervous system responds to perception more than physiology. That's why belief in endurance changes performance instantly. The brain obeys what it expects. When you expect more, it delivers. When you expect less, it shuts down early. Every time you feel drained, remember that fatigue is feedback, not finality. The nervous system monitors your effort and releases chemicals to slow you down before true depletion. It's protection, not punishment. But progress lives in defiance of that comfort threshold. The best performers in any field, athletes, artists, soldiers, all train their minds to distrust the first wave of fatigue. They know it's the body negotiating for rest, not announcing failure. They negotiate back through action. The second wind that follows isn't mystical. It's biological permission unlocked by persistence. That's where champions are made, not in talent, but in tolerance. The brain's protective mechanism exists to keep you alive, but it also keeps you ordinary. It misreads discomfort as danger. The secret to expansion lies in teaching it the difference. When you push past the first signal, your system recalibrates. The next time, the alarm rings later. That's adaptation. Pain becomes less about survival and more about growth. The body learns it can handle more stress without breaking. Over time, the line between what feels impossible and what's achievable begins to blur. You no longer stop at the first signal. You wait for truth, not fear. That's the transition from survival to mastery. Progress hides behind fatigue, because fatigue is the gatekeeper of potential. Every great performance, every breakthrough, requires confrontation with that threshold. Most people back away the moment it arrives, thinking it marks the end. The rare few walk through it. That moment feels unbearable only once. After that, it becomes initiation, the price of access to a higher level. When you cross that boundary, something in your mind changes permanently. The discomfort doesn't vanish, but your relationship with it does. You begin to crave it, to chase it, because you realize it's proof that growth is happening in real time. Discomfort becomes sacred when you understand its purpose. The pain that comes after the first limit isn't a signal of failure. It's confirmation of transformation. Every rep that burns, every minute that feels too long, every day that tests your patience is a conversation with your nervous system. You're teaching it how to trust you. That's why pushing through fatigue creates more than physical growth. It builds emotional resilience. You start to handle chaos calmly, pressure patiently, and pain intelligently. The man who controls his response to discomfort becomes immune to mediocrity. When you stop at the first wall, you train hesitation. When you continue, you train hunger. Those who keep going after exhaustion feel something shift. Their senses heighten, their focus deepens, their motion becomes automatic. That's the zone where mastery resides, effort without emotion, movement without noise. The body is no longer negotiating with the brain, they're aligned. That unity cannot be achieved without crossing the threshold of false fatigue. You earn it through discipline, not motivation. The mind that endures learns to distinguish exhaustion from excuse. There's a reason the best in any craft look calm under chaos. They've lived beyond the first signal of quitting so many times that discomfort no longer defines them. They've trained their nervous system to stay silent when others panic. They've learned that pushing through doesn't drain you, it reveals you. Fatigue becomes feedback. Strain becomes strategy. Their limits expand because they no longer fear the cost of effort. What once felt unbearable becomes a familiar rhythm, a dialogue between ambition and biology. That's the moment the human body turns divine, when will and wiring merge into one relentless force. Motivation burns fast because it feeds on emotion. It arrives in surges, exciting, intoxicating, fleeting. You feel unstoppable for a few minutes, maybe a few days, until the flame dies and the old inertia returns. That's why people chase motivation endlessly, like addicts seeking a spark they can't sustain. The truth is, your nervous system cannot live on adrenaline forever. The body returns to baseline, and so does your effort. Meaning, however, is a different kind of fuel. It doesn't spike. It sustains. It roots itself in purpose, not excitement. When what you do connects to who you are, it stops feeling like effort. It becomes identity. That's where permanence is born, in consistency guided by belief, not emotion. The problem with hype is that it creates dependency. You start waiting for ideal moods, perfect conditions, the right playlist, the right words, the right inspiration. That waiting turns into paralysis disguised as preparation. Those who build legacies understand that emotion is unreliable. They build systems that function even when they feel empty. Habits tied to purpose carry their own momentum. When you anchor your actions to meaning, you don't need to feel ready, you just act because it's who you've become. The shift happens the moment you stop asking, "How do I stay motivated?" and start asking, "Who am I becoming when I do this daily?" Habits carve identity one repetition at a time. The brain learns who you are through what you do repeatedly, not what you intend. If your actions align with who you want to be, motivation becomes irrelevant. You start waking up and doing the work not because you feel inspired, but because not doing it feels unnatural. That's identity at work, discipline without drama. Every routine repeated enough times writes code into your subconscious. Eventually, it stops being an act of willpower. It becomes your baseline. The greatest freedom is not needing hype to do what matters. Meaning survives fatigue. When you attach your effort to something that matters beyond the moment, your energy multiplies under strain. The difference between people who quit and people who last is purpose. The ones who last connect their actions to a deeper narrative. They see their struggles as service to something greater than mood or comfort. Motivation says, "I'll do it when I feel like it." Meaning says, "I'll do it because it defines me." That difference separates the temporary from the timeless. People fueled by purpose don't rely on excitement, they rely on identity. The modern world glamorizes motivation because it sells fast. Quotes, videos, slogans, all designed to trigger short bursts of dopamine. It feels like progress, but real transformation happens in quiet, unexciting repetition. The ones who rise beyond average treat consistency as ritual, not punishment. They don't seek energy, they seek alignment. Hype fades after the first obstacle. Meaning endures through 1,000. You can tell who's chasing hype and who's building legacy by what they do when nobody's watching. The former waits for feeling. The latter moves from principle. Meaning is not found, it's built. You build it through commitment. Each time you choose effort over ease, you reinforce a belief that you are someone who follows through. That belief becomes your internal architecture. When life hits you, you don't break. You default to the identity you've built. Meaning isn't excitement, it's endurance. The ones who live with purpose move like machines designed for mission. They don't need constant reassurance because their validation comes from integrity. You can't fake that. You earn it through repeated alignment between word and action. Habits tied to identity create peace. You stop living in emotional chaos because your actions no longer depend on feeling good. You wake up, move, act, not because you're inspired, but because you've programmed yourself to. That predictability gives life rhythm. It eliminates mental noise. You stop negotiating with yourself every day. The energy that once went into decision-making now fuels mastery. Freedom comes from removing choice where it's not needed. The habit becomes the anchor. It's not a prison, it's protection. Those who depend on motivation burn out because they live in emotional weather. When the environment is perfect, they shine. When it's not, they disappear. Meaning makes you weatherproof. It allows you to operate in rain, storm, or drought. Because when what you do is who you are, conditions lose power. That's the quiet difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs chase moments. Professionals chase mastery. They don't need lightning. They light the fire themselves every single day. That's not arrogance. It's devotion to the craft that shapes them. Your nervous system thrives on repetition. It seeks stability, not chaos. The more predictable your habits, the more energy you conserve for creation. When you tie those habits to identity, everything aligns.